Hello there, and welcome to yet another episode of this series of probably 4 episodes of me building my very first add-on for Adobe Express by porting my old Lorem Ipsum plugin that was built with UXP for Adobe XD over to an add-on for Adobe Express. Me, that is Zuri Klaschka. Pronouns are they, them, or she, her. I'm a developer of plugins for Adobe. I've been a developer for the UXP ecosystem, so primarily for Adobe XD and Adobe InDesign for, it's already been like 7 years or so, since 2018. In this series, really we'll just look through the whole development process. So we started in episode 1, and this is episode 3, by the way, by just exploring the documentation and figuring out what kinds of approaches we might be able to use and stuff like that. And then in episode 2, last week, we started to actually build some of the plugins, some of the user interface of the plugin. And today, in episode 3, hopefully we'll be able to really look into implementing the actual functionality of the add-on. So last week we already built some workarounds for functions that aren't quite in the stable APIs yet. And by the way, we can't use unstable APIs at the moment because we want to publish this add-on at the end of the series. And so with that, since we're not allowed to publish add-ons with unstable APIs, what we have to do is to find some workarounds to really only rely on those APIs that are already stable. And yeah, with that, really, this episode will mostly focus on the nitty-gritty of implementing the actual functionality of inserting placeholder text into our documents. Just as a quick heads up, unfortunately, I'm not really ill, but slightly under the weather. And with that, it might be that I have to take a break in between or something like that. But as a positive message regarding that, this time we have a cat cam, just in case we have to take a break. So with that, as long as Lola stays there, as she is right now, really also taking a break will at least have some entertainment value for you. So I'm not too worried about that. We'll just have to see where today takes us. And so with that, I'll start sharing my screen, and hopefully we'll be able to dive right back in. All right. Also, just a quick heads up, I'm using slightly different equipment for streaming this today. So with that, I have a lot more flexibility to quickly adjust how everything looks and sounds, but at the same time, things might be slightly different from the previous episodes. But yeah, just let me know if there are any problems with that. Hey, Thomas Sackler, nice to see you here. All right, then I guess let's go back in here. I reopened our project, and by the way, you can also find this code to or at least as far as we got in the last episode, on GitHub under Lorem-Ipsum-add-on on the user PKLASCHKA, so Papa Kilo Lima Alpha, Sierra Charlie Hotel Kilo Alpha, where you can also find this code open source if you're interested. So let's just restart our development server. And yeah, you can see that I did a bunch of stuff since we worked on this last time, but not with the add-on, just generally. Yeah, I also have work to do apart from developing add-ons. So I think it was npm start, or is it npm run dev? Let's see. It's npm run dev. All right, npm run dev. First command of the day. It still builds. That's a good message. Nothing has broken since last week. And then let's go into Adobe Express and just take a look at what we were able to achieve last time. So let's go into add-ons, enable add-on testing. This time I'll hopefully be able to remember that I don't want to reload Express to reload the add-on. I still understand the risks of loading an add-on from an external server, also known as localhost, which isn't really external. Connect. And Lorem Ipsum is here, and as you can see, we also still have a panel. Unfortunately, it takes a while for the fonts to load. I'm not quite sure what that is all about, but yeah, the add-on development documentation says that the Adobe Clean font is injected into there, so I don't really have a lot of influence on that kind of thing, so it just is what it is. You can see that currently, while we have our functional panel, so Lorem Ipsum, fill selected, and so on, we can select stuff, but we can't really select it yet. As you can see, we can say include line breaks and stuff like that. And we can click on insert placeholder text, and we even get some feedback in the UI, but it doesn't do anything yet. So that is probably something we'll have to change today. Let's look back into our code that we used to achieve this. So at the moment, I think most things are within this main.tsx. So in here we have this kind of weird global close function that we defined last time, just to make sure that these kinds of toasts that appear in the UI, at least for long texts, only show up once. And then you can see that we just used React Spectrum for a very basic UI. And I think we can actually just keep doing that for the moment. So let's see here. Yeah, we have this selected key right here. So this will probably be a managed component, which also makes sense because we want to load our old preferences from storage. We also have another picker with selected key. This will probably have to look somewhat different. We have a checkbox that doesn't have managed state yet, but probably will in the near future. And then we just have our button that does a bunch of stuff. Okay. So let's for now just go in here and look into how we can store our preferences and reload them the next time. I think that is a good thing because it's still part of the UI, and then later we can dive into once again interacting with the document sandbox. So I want to open developer.adobe.com/express/addons/docs. And probably not guides, but we'll get there. SDK references sounds good. And then let's just have a look at the add-on UI SDK. Client-side storage access. That sounds kind of like the thing we need. Okay, so it is asynchronous, which, I mean, fair enough, even though I'm not 100% convinced about that, just because we could also just use local storage, but I would imagine that that's not really encouraged, to say the least. And yeah, I mean, let's just have a look at how this works. We have add-on UI SDK ready, then store equals add-on UI SDK instance client storage. And yeah, just a quick heads up, I'm not familiar with the most modern React. I think React now has a nice way of using promises. That's kind of new. So we might be able to just use that But yeah, we just have to see. Okay, but let's just first of all introduce some states. Let's keep this very simple, and we'll just introduce the states for our various options. So first of all, we have what should we call it? Yeah, text probably. Have we already used that? No, perfect. Text, set text equals use state, and we'll just use some temporary value for now, Lorem Ipsum. Then we have the end with punctuation mark thing. So let's just call this punctuation for now. And yeah, this is none, sure. And we'll have line breaks, which is false by default, sure. So let's make sure that we reuse some of these keys here. So for example, in here, we have Lorem Ipsum. So we want to have at least one option that says Lorem Ipsum. And then our selected key will be text and on change probably set text here. Perfect. Let's also just hide that for now. Yeah, so selected key text, on change, set text. Let's just see if that already works. Nope, I still cannot set this to another thing, and I don't want to selected context only. So let's see, let's quickly check if we have any errors in here. Don't think so. Yeah, that's just some accessibility stuff from the looks of it. So let's just continue on and see where we get from here. Have another picker. So punctuation. And this here would be none. This right here would be period, question, exclamation. All of these can still change, by the way. I'm just looking into these kinds of things. And let's actually just for testing say console.log punctuation, and we also need the value and set the punctuation in here. And let's just see if that works. Apparently not. So probably onChange isn't really working for the picker, I assume. Let's just try to refresh this here and make sure that it's not. Yeah. Okay. So onChange doesn't seem to be working. So let's also have a look at the React Spectrum documentation again. And in here we need the picker, not the color picker, also not the color swatch picker or the date range picker, but the picker. Okay, so options, use date, on selection change. Okay, so it's on selection change. Let's try that. On selection change and on selection change. Options. Okay, we could even do it like that. That's nice. Let's keep that in mind. No, I don't want to go to Road Central. I want to go to Chrome again. Just to have a look here. Yeah, that looks much better. Punctuation period. None. That seems to work. Perfect. So, with that, the next thing is we also have to make the include line breaks thing work correctly. So it's this checkbox right here. And since we already learned that sometimes React Spectrum has some unconventional names, let's look at this. is selected and unchanged. Okay, so is selected equals line, what did we call it? Line breaks. And unchanged is set line breaks. For whatever reason, auto-completion isn't really working great right now, but that's something we can still work with. Okay, so that also works. And then we could still do that. Oh, okay, and it seems like it's when I hide the toast that some accessibility concerns are there. So that's not really anything I can change because it's just something from React Spectrum. So something that team will have to change. The next thing I really want to do is to include a JSON file containing all our placeholder text from the original add-on for, or plugin for Lorem Ipsum XD, of course. Yeah, so speaking is also not always easy, but yeah, the original plugin for Adobe XD. So, and in here we should have, was it in static? Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, it was in source. There it's placeholder-texts.json. So let's just create that file in our source folder. Placeholder texts.json. And then I'll just copy the contents from GitHub. And as you can see, it just is an object that contains various keys, and the value is then some placeholder text corresponding to that key in various languages. So for example, we have English, German, Spanish, French, and of course 2 Latin texts, including the original Lorem Ipsum. So with that, really what I want to do is to extract this picker right here into its own components. So let's just go in here and say source components slash placeholder text picker.tsx. And in this case, all I really want to have outside here is the state of this, and everything else should really be figured out by the picker itself. So let's come in here and export a function placeholder text picker, which takes in some props like text and set text. And this will then return some sort of picker. So I'll just copy that over from here for now. Return picker. And the items will actually then get loaded from our JSON file in a second. So in here, instead of all the stuff we specified here, we'll just be able to say placeholder text picker. And it's really annoying that autocompletion isn't doing its thing right now. So I might want to restart VS Code in a few seconds. But for now, let's see here, placeholder text picker. And in this case, let's make a small change here to see if this gets loaded. It does not. Picker is not defined. Okay, of course, we also have to import picker here. So let's see where we imported the picker. Yeah, that's not really helpful. Okay, it's just from the normal React Spectrum. So import picker from React Spectrum. and item, of course, as well. And now it's working again. And as you can see, it also loaded the changes. Perfect. So let me quickly think. Can I just restart the language server? Maybe. I don't want to restart the Deno language server. Restart TypeScript. Restart TS server. Let's see if that helps. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Not really great because it's kind of wrongly identifying some of this stuff. But hey, it's better than it was before, so I'm not complaining. And just to help this thing out, we'll also, even though it's not necessary, import React. Let's clear the console again. And yeah, it looks like it's working correctly. So in here, let's do the following thing. Let's import. And I don't quite remember how it was in Vite, so maybe it was a default import. We'll have to see. Import, let's just do everything for now as placeholder texts from placeholder text.json. Let's see if that works. So let's just console log it in here. Yeah, it is a default export in Vite, so let's convert it to that. Yeah, that looks good. So what we'll do here is probably exactly the same thing as they did here. Well, not exactly, but almost. So we can just do something like the following, I guess. So we'll just pass it items, and of course we can't pass it the placeholder text directly, but we need an array instead. So with that, we want something like object.entries. And let's not map that for now. We'll just use the entries as is. And then instead of this whole thing right here, we can hopefully do something like that. Let's see if that works. First try. Almost. Okay, I still need like the translation, so to speak, of what these would be called. So the labels for it, but at least it loaded them correctly. So with that, let us do a quick and dirty solution, because maybe later I'll integrate the localization that I have in the UXP plugin, which is why this works there. But for now, let's just say, or I guess we can do it differently, because we don't really need these to be these technically looking things. So we can just say Lorem Ipsum Latin, Cicero Latin, Cicero English, or Cicero, I guess, Pangram English, and I'll also have a quick look if that works. We have to, of course, do this differently now. So these things actually will get flipped. So, okay, I have to rename these, otherwise this is confusing. So this will be the label, and this will be the value. Let's call it like that. Yeah, that looks somewhat functional. Because then what we have now is we actually have the full placeholder text string within the value of this element. And so later we can just pass that string over to the other side, so to speak. Or at least that's my plan for now. So let's remove that console log statement and have a look at what else we need. So placeholder bigger. Yeah, that seems to work. So let me just quickly go over into the plugin again and have a look at how I actually translated these into English. So in the default.json, where did I actually translate these? Is the question now. Let's see. That's a really good question. Placeholder texts, modals. As you can see, also I don't always here. Okay. Well, that's kind of disappointing how I solved this in UXP. I just hard-coded these options again, which are also defined in placeholder text. That's kind of disappointing. But hey, let's just copy these over as well. So let's go back into our JSON file and just replace that Ipsum, and then okay, so these are really just like that. Okay, it's an interesting mix of, I said German in English, but then I said Espanol and Francais in their respective languages. Interesting. All right, let's just not question what I did 7 years ago and just use this. So pan-gram Espanol, gram Espanol. And I don't speak any word of Spanish, so with that, if my pronunciation here is terrible, please excuse me for that. And like that, Francais. Yeah. Speak a little bit more French, but yeah. I learned French for like 4 years in school, but it doesn't really go beyond anything than oui, je parle un très petit peu de français. On aid. I could probably like at least get help, but apart from that, really not much else. So let's see if that worked. Yeah, perfect. So now we have these sorts of things. Let's also just change the default value within our state to use the new key. And really this should be working now. So let's just maybe refresh this. Okay, it's not doing that yet. Lorem Ipsum Latin standard. It's also this right here. And should also be the key, right? So value. Ah, right. Okay, so it was the value that we used. So let's do this in a very quick and dirty fashion. Export default placeholder text. So this is a const, by the way, constant. Const placeholder text. And let's not hard code this here, but instead say placeholder text. Like that. And then go in here and use default placeholder text in here. Yeah, now it works. See? We just have to sometimes take a slightly non-idealistic approach to programming, and then stuff can begin to work. All right, let's see here if I want to change anything about that before we continue with another topic. So have to label placeholder text object.entries. We can probably just extract that to over here. That sounds like a reasonable thing to do. So let's make this a constant in the module scope. Available placeholder text sounds good. And let's also give it a little bit of documentation. Available placeholder texts in the format label value where value is the actual placeholder text. Okay, I think that's fine. I just always want to... Okay, that's a really ugly type, but hey, so be it. What I really always want to do is just to provide just a tiny bit of documentation, just so that when I come back sometime later, I can quickly just hover over this and see what it is down here. So that's that. Then let's also just type all of this. So make it a type. Let's see, for function return type, can I somehow extract this? No, I can't, so let's just go in here. Export interface, props. That looks good. So let's specify that. On selection change doesn't like that. Text void is not available, assignable to key void. Types of parameters in text key is not assignable to string. Oh, so it at least thinks it's dealing with numbers. It isn't really, but it thinks it's dealing with numbers. So sure. Once again, a quick and dirty solution. Does it work out here? Probably not, right? Yeah, that doesn't work. So let's just do the following. Key h2 set text key. It's ugly, but it works. And I see Jeffrey, I hope I pronounced your name right, has joined as well. So welcome to today's episode. Let's see. That's that. On selection change, all of that works. So let's just add a little bit of documentation here as well. This is not param0. This is actually props or something like that. And this is props for the... Sure. I don't really need any of these. I just want to say picker component for selecting placeholder text. All right, then let's continue on. Let's have a look at the second picker actually. And there I think I want to do something similar in the hope that, let's see if this would work if I did an empty key here and also up here specified an empty key. Yeah, it still recognizes this as none. So with that, really what we can do is to just literally use these keys as values. And with that, we don't have to translate, so to speak, between various things. So that's good. And value in this case will be a number, but it isn't a number as we've learned. So it could be a number. So with that, let's just do the same thing again. Something like that. And now actually we have these things. And what I want to do now is to write out at least the rough outline of what I want our actual function to look like. So function on insert. Yeah, let's call this, may have a little bit longer name. And let's just do this for now. Let's actually just copy all of the stuff we already thought about earlier into here. And that might also be close to what we want. So for now, let's just console log with all our details and see if that works. We still have to change it down here, of course. So on press, we really want to get these outer braces. On press, we want to have on insert placeholder text. That maybe we can also just put it into one line again. Yeah, okay, now we actually get all this information here. So now let's select none. In that case, our punctuation is nothing. Line breaks false. Line breaks becomes true. So that works. And really, apart from the little piece of functionality that was still missing here about, how should I put it, about retaining these kinds of settings and setting them as a default when we load the app again, which we can handle a bit later or next or something like that. We'll have to see. Really, getting slightly stuck in trying to explaining it. Really, from that point on, all we have to do, and I realize now that I should probably put myself more on the right-hand side of the screen because then it's easier to see stuff. And really what we want to do here is to give me just 1 second. I'll quickly gather myself again, and then I'll be back to you. Not full strength today, but we'll be able to continue on at least. Yeah, let's just do the following. I'll take a 2-minute break just because my brain isn't working properly right now. I'll give you 2 minutes of cat content, and I'll be back in 2 minutes, hopefully able to continue on. So see you in a second. And we're back after a quick break. So, what I originally wanted to explain to you and got stuck on is that at this point in this very function, so when inserting placeholder text, we really are done on the UI side of things, more or less. Because then really all we need to do is to call the document sandbox API that then has to take over inserting the text for us. So in here, really, this very object that we're logging to the console right now, which contains our options, is something we have to pass over to a function within our runtime API. So something like that. And we actually can make this an asynchronous function for that to make that work. And then really we just wait for the result. And depending on the result, we show one of these three toasts. So either we say to the user, hey, you haven't selected anything, please do that, because otherwise we can't work. We can give them the information that they have selected some point text, and so with that, they shouldn't have to worry that it only inserts 2 words of placeholder text and that is to be expected. Or in the best case, we can tell them that, hey, everything worked, the placeholder text got inserted, just like we're doing right now. So as you can see right now, it says that, hey, this got inserted. And so I think what we should do next is really to go ahead and at least implement a 2-word solution, so to speak, for now. With the option of the longer placeholder text for the area kind of text, that we can implement later. But for now, let's just focus on inserting 2 words and establishing that sort of communication between our 2 APIs. So let's have a look here and go into source code, which contains our document sandbox APIs. We already have a bunch of functionality implemented here, which we actually implemented last week. And so we want to have another function in here, which we can call let's say insert placeholder text, and this should then have it like that. And let's actually just do the same here for now and log these to the console. Sandbox. Just to confirm that we can get this to work. So let's pass this as an object, just because I think it's a little bit nicer to pass it as an object. We could also just pass it as positional parameters and see if that still works. Yeah, we actually receive it on the other end. So you can see that we have received our information, so to speak, over in our sandbox APIs. And so the next thing I really want to do is to specify what kind of return value we can expect from this. And so for that, let's just, we have 2 options. Let me try a fancier option first. This might not be great, but bear with me for a second and maybe we can actually find a more interesting solution for this. So let's handle all of this in its own file. So let's just say source, new file, and let's just keep it at the root for now, at the root source folder. And let's call this feedback.ts. And this will either work or it won't work. We'll have to see. Let's copy our close function over there, over to there. Where were we? Feedback. So we have our close function. And then what I actually want to do would be to export different functions for the different results. So let's say, for example, success. And in that case, we just use our positive result here. Now what I want to do over here would be to import everything as results or as feedback from feedback. And now what I want to do would be to go over into our source code and okay, this might not work, but we'll just have to see. Now what I really would want to do would be to say something like import everything again as feedback from source feedback. Then we have a feedback key, which is a type in that case. So type feedback key is key of type of feedback. So in that case, this should hopefully be success. But if we export another function from over there, then it can be something different. Like for example, let's say we also have export function contains point text. And in that case, it was the other option. It was this one. So let's copy this over here. And now our type should hopefully also contain this string right here. So let's see if that actually works, because it might be that it tries to import stuff that wouldn't work anymore. It seems to still be working, so that makes me hopeful. Let's actually export this type over here. This might be a little bit ridiculous what we're doing here now, but let's just see. Over here we will say import type feedback key from source code. Still nothing is breaking because we're only importing the type, so it's not a cyclic import by definition, which may or may not have been a problem otherwise. And then over here we should hopefully be able to store some result equals await. So let's actually do this the proper way. Console log our result, but do this afterwards because otherwise things will get really weird. Over in our function, the return type of this should actually be one of the feedback keys. So let's just say we are successful for now. Result success. And ideally speaking, we can now get really fancy here and just say, hey, feedback result, and call that. So let's comment out all of this. Let's see. So Yeah, that's the success case. And that is actually not coming from over here anymore, but instead is just our success function. If we now instead were to return contains point text, which we get autocompletion for because all of this is type safe, you can see that we get the other toast. So, yay! Apparently, at least the coding bit of my brain is still working right today, even though explaining things is a little bit broken, but hey, we're getting there. So with that, we don't have to console log this anymore. We already know that we receive it properly. And then we can kind of hand over to some other code. So let's actually just bring the last bit of feedback over here, which is export function no text nodes. And so I think these should be all the toasts we need for now. We may or may not have to add others later, but thankfully, due to the way we implemented this, adding another bit here doesn't require us to change it in 50 different places, but just requires us to export another function from here. So let's remove all of this here. And yeah, really, we don't need anything more complicated on our UI side than this, which I really appreciate because managing complexity in your code on two different ends, so to speak, is something I really don't want to do. So let's have a look again. And yeah, next up, let's just try to, when we select a text node, actually have it doing something. Or no, let's try something different first. Let's have a look at our text node type. Because now we should be able to combine things. So let's handle the first case first, which would be, yeah, let's do the same stuff we did down here. And probably we can still think about whether we still need this later, but for now, let's just keep it for the fun of it. So selection is that if our selection.length equals 0, then we want to return no text nodes. And actually, could I change it in here? If I now were to change this, no, okay, fair enough. Now, if selection dot not every, but the opposite of that, which isn't any, but some, I always have to remember that. If some of them are like point text, fair enough. This isn't necessarily a text node yet, so let's see here. Select point text selection 0, because we okay, it can't find that name. Let's continue on for now. Okay, yeah, it still works. It was just I was missing the closing curly brace, and so with that error detection went haywire. But in that case, our selection contains point text because some nodes are like point text. Otherwise, everything went smoothly. That's actually our error release. Okay, that is actually our feedback code. So with that, we can actually have a look if this works. So if I select nothing, it says no text nodes were selected. If I select some point text, is this point text? Is this point text? Yeah, this is point text. Okay. Yeah, this is area text, of course. So, hey, that works. It also works that it only shows this once. So, hey, that's cool. Okay, so let's continue on. Next up, I really want to insert at least some text, even if it's not the real text yet. But for that, we'll probably have to copy over some of our functionality from our plugin. And so let's have a look at something like get Lorem Ipsum. And really, I want to not take the version from the main branch because it isn't quite functional yet. I was working on some additional bits and pieces there, so let's just use the version from the last release and copy this over, or at least copy this bit over. The copyright notice with my old name we won't be using. So lib and then something like get placeholder text or stuff like that. So not, should I put it in utils? No, I don't think so. New file. Placeholder text get placeholder text.ts. Paste this in here. And of course, we have to import this from a different folder now. Cannot find module. Yeah, want to resolve JSON modules in here, really. So resolve JSON module true. Hopefully this should just work out of the box. Of course, these things won't be working, but we also don't necessarily need them. And then, of course, we still have to do some adjustments, but that's not too much of a problem. So, texts, module. Yeah, of course, we now get past the real text. So with that, we don't really have to extract the text anymore. So we can, instead of receiving the text key, this can, nope. This can just be text, which is a string. Text, length, line breaks. Then what this does is it removes any punctuation at the end, which is contained in the text itself. So if our placeholder text contains any punctuation, like right here, then it will just strip that from that text. Then it returns our text with a specific length and potentially line breaks. Trim to n words essentially does exactly what it says. It looks a little bit complicated, but really it's much easier than it looks. So we have our text, we have a number of words that we want to trim it to, and we can specify whether to include line breaks. And then first of all, we have to make sure that we have enough text to work with. So if you imagine that our placeholder text in here has, let's say, 200 words, but really we need 800 words, then we have to trim it to the correct length. First of all, extend it to a length beyond that. So essentially, while our text split by words, so split by spaces, contains fewer words than what is needed, we just append the text to itself over and over again. And depending on whether we want line breaks or not, we include a line break or we just do it with a space. And then in the end, we split the text word for word. We splice the resulting array of words from index 0 to index n. So what splice does is it removes elements from an array and, if necessary, inserts new elements, returning the deleted elements. So I don't actually think that's necessarily the correct thing we're doing here. Should this actually be slice? I think so, right? I mean, it also works with splice because it then removes that from the array and returns the removed values. So it works with splice, but really what we want here is slice. So we just start with an index and end with an index. So we just get a small portion of the array. So for example, if we had an array like 1, 2, 3, 4, and we said slice from 1 to 2, this is exclusive. So with that, this would just return 2 because it goes from index 1, which is right here. So if you think about arrays, this of course is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and it goes up to but not including index 2. If we were to say to index 3, then it would include 3 and so on. And so what we do here is we just say, hey, from 0, so 0, 1, up to index 3, but not including. And so with that, we have 3 elements, which in the case of an array with words is 3 words or n words. We join them again and we trim any excess white space around them. So yeah, not anything more complicated than that. Get termination string is something we also don't need anymore because it's just passed verbatim, so to speak, which can just go in here and have the options.punctuation. And yeah, we actually need to define an interface for these options. So let's do that now. Let's maybe do that over here. So let's just export an interface, which we call Lorem Ipsum options, which will include the text, whether to include line breaks, and the punctuation to add verbatim. Like that. The raw placeholder text. And so hopefully with that, we should be able to retrieve some placeholder text over here. So let's just say that we want to get, and we'll call this get placeholder text because it's not just Lorem Ipsum. Get placeholder text. Let's see what this does. Generates placeholder text. This is our overall function. I think we should actually just combine the two because this is really a minimal difference. So length, or yeah, let's just do it like that. We have our length and then we just have text include line breaks, and punctuation with Lorem Ipsum options. Export this and append the punctuation. And with that, we can save one useless quote, so to speak, function. So generate placeholder text. We have Lorem Ipsum options, and then trim to n words we can keep as is. So with that, we have this function generate placeholder text. And so let's go back in here, and we actually don't need these specific details, but instead we can just go over here and say these are our Lorem Ipsum options, and of course we can reuse our type Lorem Ipsum options. And for now, let's just console log inserting get play or generate placeholder text was 10 words with our selected options. Let's see if that works. Of course, we have changed a lot of stuff. Error, failed to reload add-on. Let's see if it... No. Okay, so let's just hard reload. Then and again, we can do that. Your add-ons. Add-on testing. Hey, this is only the first time today that I reload the page, so still doing okay. Inserting 1, 2, or let me quickly move my camera over to the left so that you can see what we're doing here. So it's printed, and see if I can make this bigger actually. Inserting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words of Lorem Ipsum with no punctuation. Let's do period. In that case, we once again have 10 words, but with a period at the end. Let's do Cicero or Cicero instead. That works. So yeah, it's working. Unfortunately, the cat has to go to the toilet, so I'll quickly let her out and I'll be back in a second, no worries. And then, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to actually use that text to insert it into our text layers. So I'll be back in a second. And we're back. The cat is back outside. So unfortunately, no more cat cam breaks today, or at least not for now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the recording afterwards, and you'll get to see me struggle to find words, go into a break, and I actually had a cat cam installed today. So yeah, you can check that out if you want. For now, as you can see, given that it's now 6 p.m. or shortly after 6 p.m., for me, my computer has decided that now is the right time to turn on dark mode. So be it, but now we still see, hey, this works. Of course, it doesn't have line breaks with 10 words. That's just not how things work, but yeah, that's totally fine. And with that, let's actually look into inserting this into text areas. And so what I really want to do is to separate the two different types of text layer. The point text denotes, so to speak, and the non-point texty area text nodes. All right, so let's just say let point text nodes text node, and let's just call this area text nodes. Or should I call it? Yeah, it's probably better as auto hide text nodes. We can still rename it afterwards. So let's actually do this like that, and then we can also make this a little bit easier. So if point text nodes length is greater than 0, then our things contain point text, and then we actually just return success. And so now what we should be able to do would be to actually do something like that. Yeah, that should be correct. And just have two pieces of words. We have our first Lorem Ipsum output. Let me just mark this. It's 6:10 p.m. right now. So we've spent like round about 2 + 2 + 1. So 5 hours and 10 minutes looking through the documentation, building stuff and so on, until we have the first minimum viable product, so to speak, of our Lorem Ipsum add-on. So I think that's really a good time in terms of achieving this with all the functionality already involved. Of course, this won't do anything yet, which is totally fine. So that's something we can do next. But yeah, that's just something that I think is noteworthy. And it will actually be interesting to see how much we still need to do in the next episode after this episode is over. But for now, at least with point text, it seems to work. Awesome. So let's have a look at auto hide text next. Or let me quickly think if I want to. Let me quickly make this a little bit nicer. So I'll just make this its own function in the module scope, which I'll just. We need to use it afterwards in some way. So for auto hide nodes, do stuff as well. And then hopefully I can extract these to module scope. That looks better. And yeah, something like that. Split text nodes by type. We don't actually have to add types here, I would say. So yeah, let's just add some documentation around that. Selection of text nodes. We might actually even take the text node detection in here. We just have to see about that. Yeah, maybe let's do that. Let's say Or do we actually want that? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So let me just bring this down here. Let's keep the selection out of this. And actually use this up here. Don't pass any arguments. This can be const. Well, let's say point text nodes dot length plus 0. And let's just add our auto hide text nodes dot length in here. And if all of this is still 0, then that's good. That works. And so let's just rename this. It's no longer splitting. Get text nodes by type. Has no parameter. Categorizes the selection and returns arrays of that looks somewhat right. Let's add some line breaks to make this a little bit more readable. Perfect. So we now retrieve our text nodes by type. We do an early return if we don't have anything to work with, which is good. And then we iterate through our point text nodes. Then we iterate through our auto hide nodes. So this will be point text node, and yeah, then if we have any point text nodes, then we show the contains point text message, and otherwise we just show the plain success message, because it then basically does what the user expects it to do. All right, let's continue on, and I'll make this a little bit bigger just so that we have something more to work with. And let's continue with our auto hide node. So let's take a look again at what we can carry over in terms of code from the original Lorem Ipsum plugin. So what we did was to apply text, that was just a helper function that deals with some oddities, we might call it, within Adobe XD around repeat grids. So we actually have this binary length search, which we can use to search for the smallest amount of text. No, sorry, the largest amount of text that fits within our text area. So with that, what it would do, just as an example, is it would add more and more words, basically, up until the height of the text area becomes bigger than what it was originally. And the last amount of words before it got bigger is what will then get used. And essentially, let's do it like this. I'll go into Obsidian and I'll embed an Excalitraw. Create a new drawing and a new tab and embed. So essentially, essentially, you can imagine that we have our text area, and then it would try to fill this up with words. And of course, in that case, our text area adjusts to the size of the words. And this right here, maybe we can just, like, that was our original text area size. And so as more and more words get added here, of course, our text area gets larger. And in the end, we'll have more and more words. Our text area will here still have the same height as it did for our, like before we insert our placeholder text. But then if we were to add another word to our placeholder text, naturally what would happen would be that it becomes larger than our original size. And so with that, it would take that one step back, delete that one word, and with that, we would have found the perfect amount of text to fill that text area. Now, the thing is that measuring all of this takes some time. And so with that, if we were to insert like 5,000 words, it would really take a long time to word for word. You know, you can already imagine this as I demonstrate this. It's basically the perfect example, because just like it takes time for me to copy these, it would take time to do the same thing for the computer. And so with that, really what we use is one of the most basic algorithms from computer science, which is a binary search. And so what you can imagine a binary search to look like, just as a quick explanation, is if you imagine you have like a phone book, right? I mean, I know it's been some time since these were in use, but you know, you have a phone book which is ordered like A to C, or Z for those that don't live in the US. And so naturally, when you try to find something in a phone book, you don't really look for the page by beginning on page 1, then going to page 2, then going to page 3, but instead, first of all, you split this in the middle. And let's assume that this here would be what we're searching for. So this, in that case, is our ideal length, so to speak, because in that case, that was our original size, so to speak. And so first of all, what I do is I double the amount of text until we go out of bounds with this. So, you know, with one word, it's one line, so it's not going beyond that. 2 words, 3 words. At some point we double this. We're still not beyond it. We double it again. We're still not beyond that point. We double it again in size. We're still not at that point. And the next time we double the amount of words, then this is the first time that we have found like our bit of intersection. So our target line, of course, would be right here. And so with that, really, we can narrow this down to it was somewhere within this area. And so then really what we do is we first of all split it down in the middle. So with that, we now know that we're still out of bounds. You know, this box is still bigger than what it needs to be. And so with that, we can once again split it down the center. And now, actually, that amount of words, that center right here, of course, is smaller than what we need. So with that, we can once again make this half, and we know that it's somewhere in there. And then the next piece is exactly what we need. And so with that, we have finally figured out the perfect amount of words. And instead of having to go through A, B, C, E, which would essentially take time for every word, we now only need a fraction of the amount of time. We actually, technically speaking, need the base 2 logarithmic function of the amount of words. And so with that, that's much more time efficient. And essentially, that's all this function does, in the sense that it takes the smallest number we have found where the text is clipping, and this was a slightly different logic, but with clipping in this case, we mean that our box is bigger than it should be. And then we take the biggest number of words where we know that it isn't clipping, and then we just split it down the middle and go down that route, so to speak. And so let's just copy this function over. So let's create a new file, which we'll call auto hide text.ts, and in here we'll paste our binary search function. And we'll write another function in here, export function insert placeholder text to auto hide text node. It's the we'll figure out a better function name later, but for now let's do it like this. Import stuff again. Import our text node, that's fine. And now we need to figure out the amount of text we need here. And so with that, what we first of all need is our original height, which we want to stay at or below. And so with that, let's say our height, let's see, brain, think, still thinking. If you get that reference, you've watched far too much chess content on YouTube, by the way. Const old height, something like that. But of course, it wasn't called that, but something different. So let's see what it was called again. Bounds in parent height. Fair enough. Bounds in parent height. We might want to do this with local bounds instead. Yeah, let's do local bounds instead. Dot height. We might want to do local bounds on the other end as well. We'll have to see about that. We don't need the old text. And instead, what we can just do would be to perform our binary length search. So const words equals binary length search. And do we have an... Yeah, okay, we also expanded. So with that, what would be our best initial guess? If math.absolute clipping number by... no, we don't expand it yet. So we have to do that later. But for now, let's just do this with a very big number just to test it, or like a semi-big number. So a clipping number would in this case definitely be 640 words. We're definitely not clipping at 0. And if we set the text, we can check if our height then is bigger than our old height, and if it is clipping. And so with that, let's see console log this for now, words with the amount of words. And maybe let's keep the old text for now, just for testing. And let's set the old text again. Old text, just so that we have it easier for testing for the moment. And then, of course, we want to call that function insert placeholder text and so on in our code.ts. So with that, where were we? Here. So insert placeholder text to auto and so on. Save, reload, and see what happens. It says words 23. Let's see if it comes to a different conclusion if we rescale this. Yes, it comes to a different conclusion about how many words it needs. That's promising. It might mean that we're very close to also implementing that piece of functionality. Let's see. Trying to get hyped up about this again. And I am, by the way. So let's go in here and we can say, instead of having the old text in here, we can actually just put the generated text in here. And that very much did not do what it should have done. Because we set 2 in here, which obviously cannot work. So we want the amount of words in here. Attempt number 2. Drum roll. That's good. Let's add a little bit more. Yeah, I would assume that it can't add another line here, right? Like if I were to, yeah, it looks like essentially the next character would go below that point, so to speak. But that's fair. Like that's just stuff with line height and shenanigans like that. So let's insert it here. That works. If I now put a period behind, that works. Question mark works. Let's make the text smaller. 20. And allow it to get a little bit bigger. Include line breaks. I mean, I'm not sure if we're currently including the line breaks or not, because I think it's still not enough text for that. So let's make it size 10. Insert some placeholder text. And of course, we need to add more empty lines again to allow it to become bigger. Insert placeholder text. Okay, it's capped at 640 words, so it only got up to 639 words. So with that, we still need to expand our upper bound, so to speak. But yeah, it's looking really promising at the moment. So let's do this next. Let's actually extract our isClipping function, because we might want to reuse that actually. So let's just do const is clipping equals, and then insert all of the below code. And the cat wants to get back in a few seconds, but let's at least finish this. So is clipping, and then we can put is clipping in here. N in this case is a number. And so now let's figure out our upper bound, so to speak. So we'll start at let upper bound equals 2, and while it's not yet clipping with the upper bound, we want to expand our text. So let's see if it can now insert more. No, it's still at 640. Because we're not using our upper bound yet. And obviously we can then adjust the lower bound as well, but let's do this for now. Okay, it can at least insert much more text. Yeah, and that looks somewhat realistic. I'm not sure if it inserts line breaks yet. That's something I'll figure out in a second. But first of all, I'll let the cat in. And then we're also getting quite close on time. So let's see what we can still do. For now, I'll be back in a second when the cat is back in the room. As you can see, the cat is back in the room, demanding attention, but that's not quite something we can provide right now, because what we want to do now, of course, is to at least figure out if the line breaks are working correctly. So let's have a look at that. And after that, I think we're getting pretty close on time. So I don't know yet if we'll be able to do anything more than that today. So trying to pet the cat at the same time. So hopefully she's a little bit more quiet. Let's do the following here. Let's just, not in feedback, let me quickly close things we won't need. Let me just add another option for placeholder text, which is a short text. Short text. And so with that, it should then insert line. We didn't include line breaks here, but, or maybe that was just the default option. But yeah, let's just say short test. Okay, line breaks are apparently not working yet, because from the looks of it, doesn't insert any line breaks. So let's maybe have a look at what it's trying to put in there. So going back into auto hide text, let's just figure out what our final piece of text would be. So if it gets generated correctly, at least. Let's extract all of this. Okay, it's not letting me. So let's do it like that. All of this into a constant, which is our final placeholder text. And it looks like my headphones have gone off. So with that, I'll quickly let Romuald, who is basically helping me today and with whom I usually communicate via these headphones, know that, still everything's working, even though apparently the headphones don't work at the moment anymore. But hopefully things should still work all right. And yeah, we'll just have to see about that later. Generate placeholder text with so with that we can console log this. Final placeholder text. Let's see. Our final placeholder text. It's Lorem Ipsum again. Short test. Our final placeholder text does not contain line breaks. Why does our final placeholder text not contain line breaks? Test string return slice trim to n words include line breaks. Include line breaks should be true in this case, which means that it gets appended using \n, right? So let's have a look at that. Console log string return. By the way, yes, I'm a fan of console log debugging. String return. It's once again using that. So yeah, and as you can see, it basically appends this multiple times. Okay. Does it actually know that it should include the line breaks? Doesn't feel like it at the moment. I also didn't specify it anymore. But even then, it says include line breaks undefined. So apparently we're not passing that correctly. That's good to know. So let's see where we are passing this. So probably in the main TSX. Yeah, we just called it line breaks. Then it makes sense that it doesn't work. So let's call this include line breaks instead. And let's call this set include line breaks. And this should actually satisfy Lorem Ipsum options, hopefully, which we can import. And then if we were to call this anything different, then we would get TypeScript errors, which is good. So with that, hopefully, let's test this another time with Lorem Ipsum. And yes, as you can see, it actually includes our line breaks now, just as we like it. So, and as you can see in the developer console as well, hopefully somewhere in here, yeah, you can see that it's a multi-line text now. Great. So let's remove our console log statements again. Console log that, no. Can actually probably inline that again. We could even inline that right here. And then we also, of course, want to improve our lower bound to make this slightly more performant. And so let our lower bound be 0 for the moment, sure. And if we aren't clipping yet, then our lower bound becomes our upper bound. And so in here we can just specify lower bound, and hopefully that should give us some even better performance, because now we only have to check like half of the size instead of the full size, which probably won't make any big difference for the performance, considering that if we think about it, that really is only one step in our binary search, so it won't make much of a difference, but it will be one less comparison. So, hey, performance optimization and stuff like that, we have to take what we get. All right, so let's see again. Does it still work for point text? Yes, it does. Does it still work for smaller text? Yes, it does. And it still prints our information correctly. We're doing all right. We're actually doing quite all right here. So, let's remove our text, not text test, again in our placeholder text. And let's see. Have all of that. 15 minutes left of our regular time, so I think that will mostly be it. I'll be committing this to GitHub, and then we'll do a quick outro, and I think then that will be it for today. So let's see. Code yes. Okay, give me just 1 second to think about this. Yeah, I think that's it. We did that. All of that was tested. All of this works. Great. So let me commit all of this to GitHub. Maybe even in several steps. We'll have to see. Yeah, we can't really commit much without the other stuff. So let's just commit everything. And this will be feature implement placeholder text functionality. One thing I remembered to do is I wanted to test if, because with the bounds and parents, does this still work if it's rotated? It does not. So let's quickly change this to local bounds as well for the other functions. That's something we can do afterwards. And then, yeah, implement placeholder text functionality. Commit that. This time I don't have anything that requires a lot of explanation. And so let's fix that problem where if it's rotated, because it's with the bounds and parents, the height still gets different. Because essentially what happened there was we have two different coordinate systems where first of all we have our bounds in the parent, but if we rotate our object, then the local bounds, and with that our height rotates with it. So essentially this arrow right here, the red arrow, or no, let's make it green, that's a little bit more conventional. This would be our y-axis, our height, so to speak. And so of course, as we add more text in here, it grows in its local axis, which, as long as it's 45 degrees, still means it slightly grows also in the parent coordinate system. But of course we can just fix that by going over here and just, instead of bounds in parent, we'll just change all of this to bounds local. Bounds local. Do we have other bounds in parent? In parent, yes. Nope, not what I wanted. Bounds local. Bounds local. Bounds in parent is no longer in this document, which is great. So let's see if that works now. Yes, perfect. It detects this as point text. It still works with area text. Yes, perfect. I mean, as you can see, it takes a while, and that's something to improve the user experience around that is something we can hopefully look at in the next episode. But that's that. So I'm happy with that. So let's commit this as well. Fix use local bounds instead of bounds in parent. This fixes text node type detection for rotated text nodes. Thinking. Awesome. All right. So I think that should be pretty much it. I have committed everything. Let's quickly verify that it's also public on GitHub. So yeah, here we have this. Perfect. So I think that's pretty much it for today. So, all right. Let's quickly recap what we did today. First of all, of course, we connected our UI with some actual business logic behind that, so to speak. So just that it does something. After that, we actually implemented finding the right amount of Lorem Ipsum or placeholder text for our add-on, and then we actually connected that to our text nodes. And with that, now we actually have kind of a minimum viable product of a full Lorem Ipsum add-on for Adobe Express. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure yet what it will be that I will be working on next episode. There are, of course, still a few bits and pieces here and there, but yeah, I'll have a look at what I still want to implement before we can publish this to the marketplace. And then, yeah, I really am looking forward to hopefully seeing you again next week. Once again on Monday, same time. So, yeah. My name's Zuri Klaschka. I thank you very much for watching. And before I actually let you go, I'll treat you to one more round of the cat cam. But thank you so much for watching and hopefully see you again next week. Bye.